In a previous showdown on bimetal demolition blades, we tested them on all sorts of things, including drywall screws, and they didn't do too well. So if you've got a really big project that includes some very hard metal, you're probably going to want a carbide tooth blade in order to get the job done without destroying a whole lot of blades. Even though they cost more, you're going to be able to cut faster and the blade's going to last. So the question becomes, which carbide tooth demolition blade is the best? Today we're going to be testing the Diablo, the Milwaukee, and the Lenox, so let's get the testing underway and see which one is the best. The Milwaukee brand is called the Axe and it has a 5 tooth per inch design. Milwaukee also has the most aggressive tooth offset design, so it'll be interesting to see if these carbide teeth can remain intact. With such an aggressive design, it seems as though they would be more vulnerable to getting knocked loose. Diablo is known as an industry leader when it comes to metal carbide blades, but how good is their demolition blade? It has a very interesting design. It has 5 teeth per inch at the very base of the blade, and then it has 5 teeth per inch throughout the main part of the blade. Diablo uses much less of a tooth offset compared to the Axe. Lenox uses a 6 TPI compared to a more aggressive design by the other two brands using 5 TPI. So with the 6 TPI design and a very narrow blade offset, the Lenox definitely seems as though the most conservative and seems likely that it would outlast the competition. I'll be using 3 16-penny nails for the first test. The objective of the first test is just to see how these blades perform cutting nails through a 2x4. Now I'll be placing these nails equally spaced apart and in the center of the board for each of the tests. For the testing, we'll be using this jig. I will not be touching the device during the testing because that would mess up the science. The way this works is I'll apply the load on top of the board and then I'll stay back, I'll plug in the machine and let the machine do the work. I've done quite a bit of experimentation with different amounts of weight and 20 pounds seems like the perfect amount. This is a 12 amp Sawzall with 1 1/8 inch stroke. This should be a very easy test for each of these blades. We're just cutting 16-penny nails, 3 of them, as well as a 2x4 that's pressure treated. Well, it's no surprise that Lenox came in last place because it has a far less aggressive TPI compared to the competition. Also, the blade offset's a big factor. As you can see, there's a lot more blade pinch that took place on the Lenox compared to the Diablo and the Milwaukee. It's very clear that the Milwaukee Axe is the most aggressive design. It shredded the 2x4s as well as the nails. While the Diablo didn't shred the 2x4s nearly as much as the Milwaukee, it did an outstanding job cutting through this board in only 6 seconds. From looking at this board, it's clear that the Lenox just doesn't have nearly as an aggressive tooth design as the competition. This is a piece of hedge apple. I don't like to cut this stuff with my chainsaw because it dulls the chain very quickly. Now this piece of hedge apple fence post is probably 50 to 60 years old. Now it's not a very consistent in terms of quality throughout the board. It's more rotten in some areas than others, but it'll make for an interesting comparison to see how long it takes each of these blades to cut through the board. The science of using an old hedge post for a test is definitely not very good. As we cut deeper and deeper into this post, what I'm finding is the wood quality is getting better. So what we're going to do is actually reverse the order. We're going to give Milwaukee a chance to cut once again, then Diablo, and then Lenox last, and we'll take the average of the two scores. Well, the hardwood test was very interesting, with Diablo taking the lead from Milwaukee and Lennox finishing third as expected because of the tooth design. Now, what's very interesting to me is the paint. I think that Milwaukee would have won this competition had it not been for the paint. This paint has turned into like goo from the heat, and it's getting in the way of the blade moving freely. Same thing with Lennox. Look at this paint. This stuff is really built up. You probably can't see it on video, but this paint is in bad condition, and it's doing nothing besides slowing down the blade speed. When you look at the Diablo, it is not at all gooey. It's nice and smooth, and nothing is slowing this blade down other than the teeth cutting into the material. The carbide teeth in each of these blades is still in really good condition, while some of the steel that holds the teeth in place looks like it's blackened from all the heat. The teeth are still doing fine. If you've ever done some demolition in a house, sooner or later you're likely to hit some drywall screws, and they are incredibly hard. So how are these teeth going to hold up when they come into contact with multiple drywall screws? Let's find out. This 2x4 has 3 drywall screws embedded in it. We'll see if this will cause any damage to the blades. As expected, the very conservative blade design of the Lennox came in very handy in this test and prevented the blade from experiencing significant damage from the drywall screws. The aggressive design of the Milwaukee blade became a problem when hitting those drywall screws. 5 different teeth have significant damage. The Diablo, with a more aggressive blade design than the Lennox, also had damage to 2 teeth. So which demolition blade do you think won the competition? My own opinion is, if I were cutting into material that was very clean and no risk of drywall screws, I would definitely want to go with the Diablo and possibly the Milwaukee if the Diablo was too expensive. Now, the reason for this is they cut very fast. But if there's any risk of hitting a drywall screw, I would definitely go with the Lennox because the blade is going to last forever. In fact, in the previous video, I showed a mystery blade that happens to be the Lennox. I cut through 4 drywall screws embedded in a 4x4, and it didn't even cause any sort of damage. In the final video on this Showdown series, we're going to be testing the carbide tooth metal blades. Let's see how well they could perform against each other. The 3 big brands include Milwaukee, Diablo, and Lennox, just like this time. Anyway, I really enjoy reading and replying to your comments. I read just about everyone's comments. So if you've got some future video ideas, I hope you'll take time to leave a reply. Anyway, thanks so much for watching the video. Please take care, and I look forward to next time.